Hello and congratulations, class of 2020. My name is Amanda Mayu, and I am a 2011 graduate of LSU, where I earned a Bachelor's of Science in Textiles, Apparel, and Merchandising with a minor in business. Over the last 9 years, I've built my career in recruiting and talent acquisition, and I've grown companies across multiple different industries, including technology, marketing and advertising, sports, and fashion. I am currently a corporate recruiter at Facebook, where I build our CFO and COO functions, primarily focused on finance, accounting, and administrative professionals. Today, I am here to share resume and cover letter writing 101. So let's get started. All right. This will hopefully be your foolproof guide to creating a standout resume and cover letter. Let's start with resumes. Quick disclaimer. I like to say that resume preferences are a lot like coffee orders. There are a lot of different ways that you can order your coffee or organize, create, and edit your resume. So just know what I am sharing with you today are the preferred preferences across the multiple industries, companies, and hiring teams that I have worked with. However, experiment for what works for you. This is a living document that will continue to refine and be rebuilt and be edited as your career grows. So quick resume basics to get us started. You are going to use a traditional formal format, a white background with black font, written in reverse chronological order, meaning what is most recent is first from experience standpoint. Unless you are in a highly creative industry and your role is highly creative, I would not advise you to use any other format than this traditional formal standard business format. You want your resume to be 1 page. Call me in a few years, 10 to 12, when you can exceed that number. But for right now, stick with 1 page. Do not include any visuals, any infographics, or company logos. Steer clear of all of that. Only include your name, your email, your phone number, and either a full address or just a local zip code. You don't have to include your full mailing address. And please skip any other personal information, such as the date of birth or the age that you're at, your marital status, a picture of you. None of that is necessary. And please leave out references or a mention of references to be provided at a later date. That is an implied statement by applying to a role. Let's get down to the basics of your font. Please use very basic fonts that are easy to read and skim and absorb. Arial, Veranda, Century Gothic, Tahoma, any of these here, and I've listed out the actual fonts that you can see, are options that you can use. However, never, ever use Comic Sans, but I hope you knew that already. Font size for your content in the bullets that you have listed, anywhere between 10, 11, or 12 is appropriate. You can always start larger when you're earlier in your career. And then as you need to create more space for your 1-page resume, you can adjust the font size. For your headers, you can stick with a 12-point font, or if you'd like to make those slightly larger so they stand out, that's totally fine. And then please have your name in a font that is large enough for it to stand out. Format of your resume. Please use clear headings that differentiate from the rest of the font or bullets or content that you have. So that could be in the form of something that's all caps, or you've bolded or underlined those words. White space is your friend. It will help the eye skim and synthesize information for an easier read. You will list your experiences as bullet points. We'll have more on that on a later slide. And then use 1-inch margins to start. You can certainly adjust this as your experience expands. Now, the order of your headers or your categories. Always start with your name at the top. Please do not make that information hard to find. Then list out your contact details. So what we covered in the earlier slide, just your name, your phone number, the ways that we can get a hold of you, your email address. Then a summary is totally optional. More to come on that on a later slide as well. Then list your experience, Then your education, those could certainly be swapped out, a little bit of wiggle room there from a preference standpoint. Then please have an area for your skills, hard and soft. And then other categories that are totally optional, but earlier in your career are certainly helpful in building out your entire resume, are volunteer or career extracurriculars. This highlights transferable skills depending on what your interest or your volunteer activity has been. A great place to showcase transferable skills to a new role. And then interests are also a really fun place to showcase your personality and potential cultural alignment to the company you're applying for. Now, should you use an objective or a summary? Or even what is an objective or a summary? So a lot of the resume templates you'll likely use in building out your resume will have either an objective or a summary header spot. An objective will tell what you want to find in your career, and I wouldn't suggest that. A summary will tell what value you will add to the company or position that you are applying for, and that is a more preferred option. If you choose to use a summary statement, know that less is more. Focus on simplifying the value add you will bring in about 2 sentences max. Skills. Skills are an incredibly helpful section to have on your resume because a lot of resumes are filtered and sorted using keyword searches. So recruiters will build Boolean strings to try to find various skill sets or job titles or a variety of different functions. And oftentimes, these are the words that we're using alongside maybe financial analyst or something of those sorts. So you want to have systems that you know, softwares, pieces of programs that you know listed out. So system experiences could be things like SQL, HTML, Tableau, which is data visualization, obviously Excel, Adobe Creative Suite, things of that nature. And if you do list things like Microsoft Suite or Google Suite, if it's helpful to list Google Sheets or if it's helpful to list out Excel, just know that those are likely going to be the keywords searched for rather than the word Microsoft. And then from a knowledge example, I've listed here just some standard things that I often look for. ASC 842 is an accounting code that the entire country uses as part of our accounting philosophy. CISA is a certification. Scrum is a methodology. These are other knowledge examples that you would have listed as a hard skill. And then your soft skills are more of the personal traits and habits that you might have, the things that you've learned and refined without necessarily needing to be an expert in one software. So customer service, willingness to learn, attention to detail, those are just some, examples. Team player is often one used as well. Bullets. Please, as you are listing out your experience, use bullets. Do not use any paragraph or long form. It will not be read. Also know that only your first 2 to 3 bullets will actually be read or skimmed. So you want to explain your impact clearly and edit down to only what is necessary. Also start with an action verb, some more examples to come on a later slide. And wherever you can, quantify. Quantify, quantify, quantify. Please include metrics, statistics, numbers, volume, count, size, scale. These are all examples of how to take what would be a standard responsibility and quantify what your impact and your results were. Use the past tense for the past roles and present tense for your current role. And then punctuation, as long as you can keep it consistent throughout, there really is no preference here. I personally don't put periods at the end of my bullets, but if you did, have it on every single bullet throughout your entire resume, so it's consistent. Action verbs. So you want to lead with action verbs. These are all written in the past tense. However, if you are writing one for your current role, you will modify that to be in the present tense. So you want to list out that you achieved, that you advised, that you analyzed, that you consulted, you delivered, you directed, you executed, you implemented, you improved, you negotiated, you mentored, you partnered, you strategized, you standardized, you tracked, you transformed. These are all the key action words that will let us know how you can also be impactful and deliver results in a new opportunity. Then quantifying examples. So the easiest kinds of industries or roles I would say would be finance, sales, those ones that you have a number, a sales goal that you're working towards, that you know a volume of, say, a budget that you're managing. But there's a lot of other ways to quantify what you have on your resume. So if there's something that could be a year-over-year increase, that's wonderful. If you could reduce cost of a certain amount, if you exceed a sales goal by a certain amount, that's certainly wonderful. But you can also use things like managed a team of 6 or mentored 12 interns or directed 25 events a year. Those are all quantifiable things rather than just led events, mentored a team. Let us know who and the how many and the why. And if you're still uncertain, guesstimate. Take a little bit of liberty to say, I wonder if the impact that I had, be it, I might not have been in the weeds of knowing all of the details about the company, but can you think about maybe what your impact was? I like this, facilitated the opening of 250 new customer bank accounts in 2015. That gives me an idea of the volume. So even if you're just using a volume to describe what you did, these are all the kinds of bullets that stand out in a resume and that recruiters and hiring managers look for. Now, if you're having trouble writing about your experience, there's a few different ways that you can go about this. One of my favorite, and I feel like the thing that I wish I would have known at 22, was that you can use the job descriptions that you would like to apply for to help you write your resume. Let's say you've been a finance intern somewhere and you're looking to be a finance assistant or finance associate or analyst. You can use that job description and say, you know what, I did do that. I did review numbers, or I did deliver presentations, or let's say you are in a sales function and you were an intern, maybe supporting a few different people. And you're like, well, I really want to be a sales executive because I love people and I love to get out there and sell. Well, find elements of the job description that were also responsibilities that you have had previously and use those to rewrite your experience. Don't just copy and paste. Certainly think about having it in your own voice and in truth to what you did. Another way that you can do this is seriously list out every single activity, deliverable, or task you've ever performed in any of your roles or internships, and then go back and edit to see what is most impactful. What can you quantify? And then also align to what you're listing out first as being the most relevant things for what you are applying for. When it comes to submitting your resume, you will want to proof check, and then proof check again, and then edit again, and then spell check, and run every single type of edit you can through your resume. Call a friend, call your mom, have someone else take a look at your resume and ensure that you're not missing a glaring typo. It is the first thing that will likely disqualify you, is having a typo in your resume. Then you will want to save as a PDF. Please do not submit your resume as a doc. I prefer PDFs because they are always easy to open and none of your formatting will move around or get hairy as you submit through the tool. Then also save your resume as first last resume, not as my most updated resume 2020 or resume 2020 version 7 or Amanda's most recent res, none of that. First last resume. Now, if you are using two different versions of your resume, let's say you could take a marketing path or you could take a sales path. I would suggest doing first, last resume industry or first, last resume company. So if I were Amanda Mayu resume sales, Amanda Mayu resume marketing, that is certainly acceptable as well and help you keep your various versions of your resume organized. I wanted to share a few examples of some of the do's and don'ts that we've already walked through here. So as you can see, the resume on the left has little to no white space. There is no visual white space to help me absorb any of this information. And while I'm sure this person has wonderful experience, I'm seeing some numbers that pop out to me. The fact that there's no white space between any of these areas is just a lot. And if I'm looking at hundreds to thousands of resumes, one like this that I have to really squint, get my reading glasses on, is not going to be a fun one for me, and likely one that I'm going to say, you know what, I'm not seeing what I'm looking for. I'm going to move on to the next. The resume on the right, however, has a lot of white space, but it is still a loaded resume. Both of these have a lot of information, but the resume on the right is so much easier to read and digest and understand who this person is, where they've been with their education, where they've been with their career. They've left white space between the various education pieces that they've had. They've left white space between the different categories and headers. So when one category ends and the next header starts, that's a great place for white space. Here between these bullets, there's white space here. There is no white space here. That's not even a space. That's just the next line down on the one on the left. They've also listed out in reverse chronological order, as you can see. So from 2012 to 2013, 2014 to 2015, 2015 to 17, 17 to present. Both of these have their education on the top. I'll have other examples where their education is on the bottom. And then they've also listed language and interests. This person doesn't have any of their systems listed, which is probably one of the major edits that I would have for this resume. However, this person on the left was able to include Office suite that they know. I would maybe put Excel and other systems, and they are proficient in Mandarin. So language is also a hard skill. And then interest, hip hop and R&B, that's pretty cool. This person has interest in hiking and motorcycling and things of that nature. It's just always a get to know you talking point. You don't have to include your interest, but if you do, make it something that you could have a story that you could then relate to if someone were interviewing you or on the phone with a recruiter. They say, hey, tell me about one of the TV shows you're watching right now. I see it's an interest of yours. And just, you know, a get to know you icebreaker, if you will. And then here are two other examples of resumes of candidates that I've recently hired, actually, that are a little bit different than what we just reviewed. Both of them have great use of white space, and the categories of their experience and how they've organized their resume is really easy to digest and quickly absorb. The resume on the left actually does have a little bit of a summary profile here. And rather than having a separate skills section, they've listed out some of those soft skills and some of their areas of expertise here. And then they go into reverse chronological order again, calling out a lot of quantifiable things. They decided to have their key accomplishments stand out separate. Totally up to you. As long as it's one main bullet like this and it really is impactful, I'm okay with that. If you're calling out a key accomplishment that's not necessarily quantifiable or impactful, I wouldn't advise this particular format, but it works for them. And then here at the bottom, they have their education. So they decided to list more of their experience first. Over here on the right, this individual, under their contact information, listed out a few of the soft skills that I think are incredibly impactful here. Then they've listed their experience again, leaving some white space. This first format is a little bit of telling you what the company does. Wouldn't necessarily always advise this sort of paragraph style, but if you need to articulate what the company is in a sentence or two, that's totally fine. And then they also have listed here down at the bottom their business skills. Again, they've used Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, Word, Salesforce, things of that nature. So these are two other examples that you could use as idea generations for yours. Both have great quantifiable down here at the bottom. Outperformed 95% of the organization. Wow. So some great examples that you can use. All right, let's move on into cover letters. Had to start with another disclaimer. Your cover letter might be read. Your cover letter might be ignored. I rarely read cover letters. I, quite frankly, don't have the time and have to move fast in filling my roles. However, they are likely still going to be required when finalizing your application. And there are some companies that will actually explicitly state what is necessary to include in your cover letter to be fully considered for the role. So for example, some ask you to write about a certain thing, answer a prompt that they have listed in the copy of how to apply. Some of them just ask you to include a word, and they are then going to filter through the cover letters that include that word and then consider those candidates. So keep that in mind, pay close attention. Do not submit just one blanket cover letter for every single role you apply for. We'll get into more of that later. But just know, cover letters are a necessary evil of sorts. All right, so the purpose of your cover letter is not intended to repeat exactly what your resume states. It is rather used to answer, what can't you learn about me from my resume? How can I show you my enthusiasm or connect the dots for you as to why I'm even interested? How can I sell myself in the narrative format? And then also just further demonstrating the value that you will add in a role. So best practices before we could get into the details. Please keep it short. Less is ideal, 300 words or so. Less is more here. Always ensure it is targeted to the company and the position that you are applying for. Do not use a generic one that says, hi, I'm applying for your finance role. I'm so excited to work for your company. That application won't be considered. And then if you don't have the name of a hiring or don't have a name of a exact contact or the person that you understand to be the recipient of your cover letter, you can always use hiring manager. I would encourage you to leverage LinkedIn to identify a potential contact to include. So if you're applying to a marketing role within a certain department, find the person who's the director of marketing for that department and use their name. It will show that you've done your research and that you are in fact interested. And then finally, consider the personality or the culture of the company that you are applying for and adjust your formality and tone if applicable. This is, feedback to take with a grain of salt because you don't want to go super cash, but just know that a really stuffy, buttoned up cover letter might not translate to every single company that you apply for. All right, the components for what to include. You will always include your contact information. Now, most candidates will list out the same header that they have on their resume on their cover letter. So side by side, the documents will have the same header and be cohesive there. That's totally an option. I would say that's more of the modern way to write a cover letter. But regardless, you want to list out your contact information, the date that you're writing the letter, the company contact information, your salutation. Then the body of the letter will have 3 paragraphs, all relatively short, 2 to 3 sentences, your close, and then your signature. So your contact information, should you choose to not use the same format of your resume where your name and your contact information is listed across the top, you will list your name and your contact details like this. Then you will have a space, then your date, another space, then the name of the recipient at the company, the title of the recipient, company name, company address in full, and then another space, and then dear recipient, dear Miss Jones, dear hiring manager. I would encourage you to not use to whom it may concern and put a little bit more thought or a little bit more of a modern twist. I would say that's where the dear hiring manager is more of the preferred language. Your opening paragraph will simply state the role you're applying for and how it came to your attention, and then 1 sentence about why you're interested in the role. You really want to just capture the interest of the reader here and allow them, again, to quickly skim this information. Your middle paragraph will explain what you have to offer, how your experience aligns to the job requirements, and if there's any areas of expertise that you really need to call out, I would use this middle paragraph, 2 or 3 sentences to do so. Your closing paragraph, also relatively simple. Reiterate that you're interested in the role and thank the reader for reviewing. So if you're not really sure about how to kick off or like, what would I say? Here are just a few examples that literally I found online that were helpful. So I'm writing to express my interest in the international marketing position at Wellcam Inc. My colleague let me know that it was available, and I'm incredibly interested in letting you know that I'm applying. I have the pleasure of being acquainted with one of the counselors on your staff. She let me know about this open position and recommended that I reach out. These are all great examples of just how to get the opening paragraph going. Your second paragraph will always be specific to you. And then that third and final, thank you for reading. I'm incredibly interested to hear back from you with next steps. Similar to your resume, when you go to submit your cover letter, proof check, and then proof check again, and then call your mom and have them proof check, call your best friend, call someone who did really great in school that you're like, this person wouldn't let anything by them, have all of those individuals proof check your work. Save as a PDF, and then very similar, first, last cover letter, first, last cover letter company. All variations you can do to organize and save your work. And then here's just quickly 2 different examples. I would personally prefer the length of the cover letter on the left. I think Molly Smith here is a little bit more succinct and has shown that she is interested in this position. She knows someone who let her know that she's interested. She's telling me why in the middle paragraph she would be an excellent match, and then thanking me for my time and consideration. Joseph, applicant on the right, certainly still is getting his point across. He could maybe edit this back to, rather than 5 separate paragraphs, choosing 3, but it's not a bad format altogether. And then I found some resources here online, powerful verbs that will make your resume stand out, how to work with tools like Grammarly to ensure that your resume is up to date, a ton of career advice and resume samples on Indeed, jobs.com also, as well as Balance Careers. And thank you so much for coming today. I hope you found this incredibly helpful, and I wish that I had learned some of this information earlier in my career as well. Outside of my corporate day job, I do also consult individuals on the side with career advice, LinkedIn writing, resume writing, interview prep, all sorts of other just wisdom and how to adult and find your dream job in the world. So if you would like to learn a little bit more or connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find my contact information here along with my website. Thank you again, class of 2020, and congratulations. I am so excited to see what wonderful things you'll do in your career. Thanks so much. Bye.